Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to BANKAST. Ooh, let out a mighty wolf howl, ladies and gentlemen. Wolf howl for Komamura. This is his swan song. This is his episode. Took him a while to get here, but he's finally reached the conclusion of his story. Unless he does stuff in the light novels, which he probably does. I don't know. Okay, so this will be episode 17 of Bleach, 1,000-Year Blood War, Core 2. Heart of the Wolf. In fact, wait, is it Heart of the Wolf or just Heart of Wolf? Because I know Kubo, hold on, let me check the manga. It's Heart of Wolf in the manga, so I'm assuming it's just Heart of Wolf in the anime. You don't need thes in titles. No, it's Heart of Wolf. Done. Okay. So, yeah, we begin the episode right where we left off last time. The Quincy's are releasing their Voltständig. Their release forms, their angelic wings are beginning to unfurl. Yuha is rock hard right now in that throne. He is there, up there. You know, you gotta think of the absolute boss that Yuha is, really. He's gonna park his ass in that throne and just watch the devastation over the freaking Vandente. You know what I mean? He's just there, rock hard, and he's like, oh yeah, release your lights. Oh yeah, here we go. True despair begins now. Let's sock it to those Shinigami. All right, absolutely. So, the fight that we were focusing on last time was Bambiette, but before we get back to her, we're actually going to go over to the rest of the Bambis, the rest of the Stern Ritter clique here. We have Candace, we have Giselle, we have Latato, and we have Meninas. Okay, and I guess the Quincy release forms, not all of the Stern Ritters are, like, able to use it, like, initially. Like, there always seems to be, like, different levels of the Voltständig to me. Like, there's certain releases, like As Notes, when we get to his eventually, that's very detailed, like, it changes part of his body. And then we get to other Stern Ritters where their Voltständigs are just the wings and the halo, and that's it. So there's some that, like, change the body completely, and then there's some that, like, just wings and a halo, and that's all you really get, okay? So I'm assuming maybe there's like different levels of this or whatever. The way that Candace speaks about it here is that, like, oh, I wasn't really able to use my Voltständig before, but now that Bambi used hers, I'm kind of, like, resonating with that, and, oh, my wings just popped out, right? Also, something interesting, we get to see Giselle's as well. So Giselle also has the wings, of course, because of their Stern Ritter abilities. Candace is the Thunderbolt, so her wings are very Thunderbolt-esque, and then you have Giselle, who is the zombie, and her wings are very skeletal, like a skeleton bat, or something like that. And I don't think we see the wings in the manga. I think hers are displayed very briefly here, and then they dissipate, and Giselle's like, oh, I don't need to use mine, it just makes me tired, so there's really no point to use them, but you can if you want, Candy. It's fine. So we see the rest of the Bambis on top of this building. They're kind of going along with the Askenak-Levar stratagem, where it's like, you know what, let's let all of the hot-headed Stern Ritters have their fights first, like Basby and Kangdu and Bambiette. We're just gonna hang out here and wait for everybody to die, and then we'll swoop in and then we'll make our move if we decide to, you know, like they might just chill out here all night, who knows. So yeah, they're commenting on Bambiette going into her Voltständig, and they're all just basically like, yeah, she's insane, she's crazy, so whoever's going to be facing the opposite end of that thing is not going to be making it past tonight. So what I always liked about the Bambis is that there's 5 of them, and Bambiette always seems to have the general vibe like she's the leader, and they're called the Bambis, so you would assume, but I don't think they call themselves that. I don't think like Candace or Giselle, I think that's a name that like the fandom gave them, or rather Bambiette herself might have given them. I think Kubo refers to them as the Bambis as well, but that might just be like literally Bambiette, like, this is my group, okay, and I'm Stern Ritter E, so I'm the highest rank out of all of you, right? So it goes A, B, C, D, E. So I'm the 5th ranked Stern Ritter, even though the letters kind of go by rank, sort of. I mean, A, B, C, those are all really high-ranking Stern Ritters, with Yuha being A and Uryu, Hashwalth being the 2nd in command at B, Pernita's part of the Royal Guard at C, Askin eventually becomes part of the Royal Guard at D. But it seems like there's a drop-off after that, and Stern Ritters E onwards are kind of like, you know, some of the Royal Guard are mixed in too, but beyond that, there's not like a hierarchy structure like that. So I really like to think that Bambiette is like, this is my group, that they'll listen to me, And then they all have no respect for her. They do not really view her as their leader. They're like, she's the most hot-headed. She's literally insane and will just go crazy and start blowing shit up all the time whenever she feels like it. So we hang out with her because, like, but other than that, we're not going to really listen to her. We're not going to take orders from her. So she is not there. She is only their leader in her own mind, is the way I envision this. Okay, so she went into her form, and she's, of course, the Explode. So let's see how Shinji's going to... How is he going to deal with this one? All right, Shinji. So you got your Shikai out. You got Sakanade. It's able to reverse everything around you, but you do understand what AoE means, right, Shinji? Shinji, you've lived in the world of the living for the last 100 years. You should be caught up to the modern video game lingo. You do know what AoE stands for, right? You do know its area of effect, right? You do know that her, Bambiette, as Stern Ritter E, the Explode, should be able to just create a massive explosion in all directions, and you should be able to counter that, right? Yeah, no. No, he really can't. So, poor Shinji. I don't even know if I should say poor Shinji. He really should have seen that coming, where he's like, everything's reversed. You have no way of defeating me. Boom! And he just gets blasted in his chest and got knocked away. And, yeah, that Shinji's just knocked out of this fight. Now, to be fair, Shinji's Shikai and his Bankai don't really fit very well for this fight. His Shikai was easily overrun by Bambi's, release form, and should have really dealt the death blow before then, before she had a chance to release. That probably would have been the way to go, but Shinji had to play around talking backwards for a little while there. And his Bankai isn't going to work either, because reasons we've already explained. So, Shinji's... I mean, he could have fought with Kido or something, but really what he should have done here was just retreated as soon as Bambiette went into her release and try to, like, team up with somebody else or work with Komamura. But no, he just stood there and got blasted. So she just starting blasting, yeah. So, yeah, Bambiette is just like, I'll just destroy everything at once. And so her release basically gives her these really cool harpy wings that she can launch, like, bombs from them. Remember, she's not actually throwing bombs of Ryatsu. Her Ryatsu, when she throws it, comes in contact with an object or a person and turns that object or person into a bomb, okay? So... there's really no way to block it, because even if you had, like, a blast shield or something, you could throw up the blast shield in front of you. When her Ryatsu hits the blast shield, the whole blast shield blows up. It becomes a bomb, okay? Where you're standing on the other side of that, so it's not going to work out well. Momo shows up, and you know what? For a moment... I thought this was anime only. I thought this was added in, and then I remembered, wait a second, no, Momo Hinamori actually does show up to try to save Shinji here. So that's Momo. This might be the most notable thing she does in the entire arc, at least from the manga perspective. She shows up to try to fight Bambi. She eventually does end up going, I think, to the Soul Palace with the rest of them, but she doesn't really do anything there. So this might be the shining moment for Momo. Bambi looks at her with that grin of just like, oh, I'm gonna have fun with this. Now begins the massacre. Komamura shows up and saves her, though, so it's okay. So thank God Komamura didn't leave very far. He was like, gotcha, Shinji, I'll leave her to you. And then he was like walking away a couple of feet, and then he sees the light go up, and he's like, oh man, do I keep going to Yuha, or do I go back and fight against, the crazy lady with the bomb wings, Now here's the thing. Komamura had to make a choice here. Komamura is on a little bit of a clock here. He doesn't really have a lot of time to work with, and he's in this form where he's pretty much nigh indestructible, but it's only for a limited amount of time, sort of thing. And it's very limited. It's not like a couple of days or anything like that, or not even really a couple of hours. It's like, you got an hour to get this shit done, and then, you see the ramifications of that. So, Komamura could have just sacrificed the lives of Shinji and Momo and kept going forward to fulfill his vengeance! Revenge! He could have completed his revenge, or at least have attempted to. If he kept going forward and just ignored everything else around him, I feel like he could have reached the Silburn. How that would have ended, I think we can all pretty much, kind of come to terms with the fact that Komamura was not going to be able to defeat Yuha. But it would have been a cool attempt. It would have been neat for, you know, him to attempt that attack on the person that killed his master, Genryusai. So it would have been interesting. But Komamura is still Komamura. And he's not just going to let, you know, his comrades die, even if it means giving up his vengeance here. So I feel like that should count for a couple of points toward Komamura. But anyway, yeah, he goes back and saves Momo, and he also, you know, is like, hey, you have to get out of here with Shinji. I'll protect you in the meantime. So Bambiette is there, and she begins to bombard with her wings. Komamura blocks one of the shots with his arm. He kind of moves away from it so the explosion doesn't catch his head, but it does damage his arm, or at least Bambiette assumes it does damage to his arm. It blows off part of his armor. And that's right, my bombs cannot be guarded against. You have to take it all. All right. Oh, man, this is getting spicy now. So, yeah, it's just a little bit of an explanation. It's really not that hard to understand, but there's a little bit of explanation here and just, like, you know, the standard anime thing where it's like, hey, last time Rangiku spent a while explaining to Basby exactly how the effects of Heineko and the vacuum ice wall work. It's only fair that the Stern Ritter take their time to explain how their powers work. That's just how that goes there. So we get the reveal here as she blasts Komamura, just bombards him with explosives. We get the big reveal. Boom! Oh my god, he's hot! And also partially a furry now. Hashtag not a furry. Hashtag not a furry, ladies and gentlemen. But yeah, we do have a little bit of that going on there. So yes, Komamura is effectively a werewolf now, kinda. And so the whole reason because of that is the Jinka technique, or like the humanization technique is one way to look at this. So we get a flashback here of Komamura along with the giant Falcor doggy, who is his ancestor. And the Falcor doggy speaks about the werewolf clan and how they were sent to the animal realm. So not Oda. Yeah, I knew that was going to do that. I'm going to flip back and forth between those guys a lot. You know, Oda did this and Kubo did this. Okay, so Kubo has this basic cycle of samsara thing I've mentioned before when it comes to Bleach, where there's 6 realms in Buddhism, and those 6 realms are represented in one way or the other in Bleach. There's a hell realm, there's a deva realm, there's a human realm, there's an animal realm, and Komamura's people come from the animal realm. So the basic idea is if you lived your life with, you just, lived your life through a lot of carnal, primal desires and urges, if you just let yourself go over to that. One example they use here is that of vengeance, okay, and rage. And if you just let yourself, you know, get taken over by that, then you will be reincarnated into the animal realm, okay? So it's like a curse upon the people of Komamura's clan, okay? Now, there's a thing that exists known as the Jinka technique, which allows them to temporarily return to the forms where they have not sinned, okay? I always interpret this as the Jinka technique is basically a way for you to return to your original self, or partially your original self, because you still have, like, werewolf kind of, like, traits to you, like the pointed ears and the fur and everything like that. But essentially, it's giving you another chance to see what choice you make. Do you choose vengeance, or do you choose to let things go? I've always wondered on if Komamura took, you know, he performed the Jinka technique, and then assumed that human form, and then chose to let bygones be bygones, and chose to, like, just accept that these are the way things are, and just let it go, like the vengeance against the Quincy's. If he were to just let that go, what would have happened? Would Komamura have been allowed to maintain that form? Of course, the whole reason that Komamura needs the Jinka technique is in order to fight, to get stronger, to become immortal, very briefly, to fight the Quincy's, and eventually his goal was to kill Yuha, okay? So he's kind of, I guess a way to interpret this is he's using this technique, the one chance he has at redemption, he's cashing that in for more vengeance. He's cashing in his attempt at, renewal and rebirth and becoming a human again to basically double down on his revenge play. He's just like, this technique is the one chance we have to maybe go back to the, like to be washed away of our sins, and I'm just basically, nope, I'm not using it for that. I'm using it for more vengeance. And so I like to think the Falcor dog kind of had the exact same story. You know, his ancestor here, I think it was his great-grandfather or something like that, also had a similar story with vengeance and attempted the humanization technique and also turned into a giant dog at the end because they chose to, once again, be washed over by that vengeance. So, yeah, that's the way I've always interpreted it. I might not be right, though. I mean, there's other ways to look at this here. But anyway, the price, actually, to perform the Jinka technique is is a little rough. So they had a little bit of a fight here, as you could tell. There was a little bit of a scuffle between Sajin and the Falcor dog, just in the case of like, hey, I need you to teach me this. Like, how do you even do the Jinka technique? Like, Komamura did not know. So they fight for a bit. Komamura kind of knocks him down into submission, and he's like, okay, fine, I'm getting too old for this shit. Fine, I'll tell you how the Jinka technique works. And he's like, good, I'm willing to do anything, Ancestor. What? How do I have to do this? How do I perform the humanization technique? Yeah, offer your heart. And so there's like a sake cup here. There's a little Sakazuki here that Falcor kicks over to Sajin and is like, offer your heart inside of the sake cup. Now, I would imagine Komamura here for a moment is like, well, what do you mean offer my heart? I mean, offer you your heart. I'm like, yeah, I know that, but like, you mean like metaphorically, right? Like, you mean like in a sense of like, we're all like, I'm gonna like test my metal, or you're gonna give me some kind of like, I'm gonna have to go into a back room and fight against a bunch of people to really prove myself or something like that. Like, no, I mean, take your arm and your claws, reach in, gouge out your freaking heart, put it in that, and I'm gonna eat it. That's how this shit goes. What, did you think this ancient technique of our people was gonna just be like, I now bestow some fairy dust to you, and now you become a human? No, it's not about that. It's about the Quincy's killed Yamamoto, so this is the price you gotta pay. This is some serious shit here. I apologize if the opacity, if it's like you couldn't see a lot of those scenes, but like I have to do that for copyright issue. I was having a lot of issues with copyright doing this, so I have to kind of like really make it, you know, transparent. So, Komamura does it. He's nothing if not committed, because I gotta be honest with you, if you had the choice between ultimate power, but you had to literally gouge out your heart, I don't think you're allowed to use tools or anything like that either. I think you literally have to do it with your own arms. You have to literally gouge out your own heart, and then put it into a cup. That is literally what you gotta do. So Komamura did it. He straight up did it. He really respected Genryusai Yamamoto. It was the one person, aside from Tozen, but we saw how that ended, where Yamamoto was he always believed in Sajin, and he always, like, looked out for him, and it was just like, okay, you're going to be a captain, and he has the utmost respect for him for accepting him how he is, not by how he looks. So he's like, you know what? If Yamamoto died for the Seirete, he died for us, he died for everybody, I'm willing to do that too. So he gouges out his heart, so you see that plate right there in front of his chest, that's where his heart used to be. Momo, why are you still here? You need to get out of here. So Momo takes Shinji and gets out of here, and then Komamura releases his Bankai, Kokujo Tengen Myo. However, it sheds its armor to create Dangai Joe. Oh my god, I love this thing. Now, they do use CG here. You also have a scene where the eyes light up like lanterns, which is really cool. And you see, like, the black rope, like, wrapped around it and the devil horns and everything like that. So, very much like how, you know, Komamura's Bankai has always been closely connected to himself, whereas it's, like, the only Bankai that has the exemption to the, if the Bankai is damaged, it can never be repaired rule, where if Komamura's Bankai, let's say, gets its arm lopped off, Komamura's arm will also get lopped off, too. However, if Komamura got that arm healed by Unohana or Orihime or something, the arm of the Bankai would also be restored. And so that's like really the only exception to the rule here. And it's because of how closely connected and intertwined the Bankai and Komamura are, okay? I guess also lending the idea that, you know, Bankai do have a will of their own, and their bond is a little bit more, you know, direct. It might be because Komamura is part of the animal clan, of the werewolf clan. It might possibly be that. That's the reason why his Bankai is more, you know, connected to him. Anyway, because Komamura went into his humanization form and when undergone a transformation, the armor of Dangai Joe is now shed, and now you see its true form underneath it. It might not look like much, kind of like an emaciated samurai-looking dude, but the benefits here are essentially Komamura becomes immortal. So Bambi can't really damage this thing. I mean, she could try, and she's doing her best, but the thing is, the whole point of the reishi that she's firing off is anything it hits becomes a bomb. Now, the problem is that Dangai Joe is itself reishi. It is a mound of reishi. It is no physical objects beyond that. It is just the raw kernel of Komamura's power, okay? So hitting it with this thing, she can blow it up, but it'll just, like, it'll just heal right back. And that the same thing goes for Komamura as well. She can target Komamura, she could target the Bankai, she targets Komamura, all that's really going to do is nothing at the end of the day. Komamura is effectively invincible. Now, okay, when I say invincible, invulnerable, like, what would happen if, what would happen if Bambiette, like, sliced off Komamura's head or, like, dismembered him or something like that? I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure what would happen. I feel like if his arm got blown off, it would just, like, heal back up, like, not a big deal. If his head was lopped off, I'm not really sure, but we don't really address it. The idea is, though, that Komamura and his Bankai, by connection, are just a mound of Ryatsu. They're technically not a living being. Even in the context of a Shinigami and the idea of, like, everything is made out of Ryatsu or Reishi and everything like that, even then, they're not really considered living beings right now. The fact that Komamura has no beating heart, he's essentially a walking corpse, but he's a walking corpse with a purpose, ladies and gentlemen. It's armor Bankai imbued with life. The armor is shed, so it's the opposite of life, which would be death. So there you go. This is essentially Komamura's swan song, this entire episode. This is it. This is Komamura realizing who he really is, and he made a choice. Komamura made a choice. He could have made other choices on the table. He didn't have to gouge out his heart. Even after he did the Jinka technique, he didn't have to pursue revenge. He had options on the table, and he's not stupid. It's not like he didn't know. He knew what he had to do, and he chose to do it. And when the consequences finally come back to bite him in the ass, he's accepting of it. He's just like, yep, this is what I did. You reap what you sow, kind of thing. And yep, I sowed a lot of seeds, and this is what I have to reap for that. So that's how it goes. But my God, is this fight cool in the meantime. So the Dangai Joe is CG, but it's a really good CG. It's the idea, I think, because of the red sky in the background and the nature of this. There's not really a lot of there's not like a lot of tone or color to this. It's mostly the whole body is basically black with black ropes, and then you have the lights that are kind of illuminating anything out of the eyes and add some bluish hue to that. And I think it works really good for the CG, as this thing is just like, it also gives you the same kind of vibe as when when Yamamoto did his Bankai with the South, Zanko no Tachi South, and created all of the skeletons, and the skeletons were all CG. It gave you this weird, like, disjointed, that was a skull joke, disjointed kind of appearance of, like, these things don't really belong in this world. And so the same thing with the CG on Komamura's Bankai here, where the way it moves is kind of like shambling. It kind of reminds me of, like, back in the day when Courage the Cowardly Dog would have, like, it's a 2D show, but it would have random CG in it, and it's very, like, it was just very creepy, very scary kind of thing, because it's like these two different kinds of animation are not melding together, but it works somehow, you know what I mean? So I like the way it depicts it too. If I was Bambi and I saw this thing rushing at me and it's like moving in this weird shambling form where it's not super agile, but it's scary as hell. It's just like, oh, this thing is not natural. This thing is not moving the way it should be. I'm gonna die here, okay? Becoming a bomb and exploding is only frightening if you're alive. That is a badass line. That is a stone cold line from Komamura. He fears nothing. It really does seem like he does not care. Like, you could cut him in half and that won't kill him. You could blow off his head and that wouldn't kill him either. Bombs, explosions, slices, fire, none of that will matter to him while he's in this form. Like I said, he could have went straight to Yuha. He could have just ignored everything else, and he could have been fighting Yuha right now in this form. Tell you what, honestly, even if you want to say in this form he could not die, the problem is the form is not permanent. The problem is the form has a very hard time limit, and I have no doubt that Yuha would have seen that time limit and would have ran it out, and we might have had a cool scene with maybe Komamura getting a couple hits out on Yuha, but at the end of the day, Yuha would have healed from that, and Komamura's time would have run out. And that's how that would have went. So we see the armor being shed. We see the hole in Komamura's heart here, right there. And so it's the thing right there. It's like the perfect representation of, like, okay, this is the symbolism of me giving up my life. Okay, is ripping out, gouging out my own damn heart. Okay, so pretty dramatic there. Bambi realizes at this point she is screwed. Bambi realizes, like, okay, wait, I can't actually fight you. There's really not much I can do here. So Komamura just brings it down. He just brings up his sword and just swings it. Of course, the Bankai mimics every appearance that, every movement that he does. So when he runs forward, it runs forward. When it jumps, he jumps, vice versa. So he brings down the sword. Master Genryusai staked his life on this war. I shall as well. And so Bambi begins to flee. She's like, oh, no, oh, wait. And so it hits Bambi the exact same time the sword hits her. She tries to use her ability, but because it's basically just the reishi of Dangai Joe, it's basically pushing it back into her, giggity. So, she fires her reishi, it gets hit, it bounces right back, it's forced back into her, and it causes herself to, like, implode. All right, so that's basically the effect of that attack. And so meanwhile, we cut back to the cave, where we have the Falcor dog with Komamura's very large heart in front of him, and just like, you make me proud, Sajin. And so it begins to consume the heart. It's also, I guess, implied that, like, once the Falcor dog eats the heart, that's when the Jinka technique ends. I feel like it's the responsibility of the elder generation to, like, judge based off of your actions. And there's, like, a connection between the Falcor dog and Sajin where it's like he knows what Sajin's doing right now. He can either actually literally see what's happening in the fight, or he can sense Sajin's, like, mental state. And so if Sajin chooses revenge and going down that path a second time, because remember, the first time is how you ended up in the animal realm to begin with. If you choose to go back into the human form where you're devoid of sin, and then you go back on that path of revenge, the Falcor dog will sense that and then consume the heart. Makes me wonder that if, Sajin did not choose vengeance, if decided to just leave and wander the Seirete or wander the Soul Society and finding a new purpose, maybe the dog would not have eaten the heart, and then maybe it would have been different. Who knows? But that's not what happened here. So, the bombs are just going back into Bambi, and they explode. Dangai Joe lands. Komamura's there. Oh, this is actually a really cool scene where this was not in the manga. We see Yuha and Uryu there at the Silburn observing way in the distance. They could see this giant begin to rise up. And I wonder what Yuha's thinking about now. He's just thinking like, wonder if that's going to be an issue at all. And then it takes like 3 steps, and then it collapses. And then, it's like, oh, not a big deal then. Not really a big deal. Okay. Maybe Yuha was like, oh, I was a little worried about that giant thing for a second there. So Komamura understands that it's now reaching its limit, and he's like, I need you to just hold out a little longer here, Jinka technique, the humanization technique. But nah, it's winding down here. I have to get to their castle. I have to kill Yuha. So even as the technique is running out, he still is on this path. Okay, he still is going to do this. So there's a bunch of different ways to look at this too. Let's talk about Komamura's vengeance for a moment here. It's like, a lot of people would probably be on the side of Iba when Iba shows up here in a moment, where it's like, these Quincy's broke in and just murdered everybody pretty much and killed Yamamoto, and that was somebody that Komamura obviously looked up to. And then, of course, there's the whole issue with Tozen, where Komamura had those words to Tozen as he was about to die, like, why vengeance isn't right. And then, he's kind of eating his own words here, essentially. He's kind of a little bit hypocritical, or at least he views it that way, where he wasn't able to live up to the words that he gave to Tozen on his deathbed, okay? So, is vengeance justified? Is essentially, I think, the question that Kubo is trying to ask the fanbase through Komamura's fight here, and through his journey, and through the sacrifice that he must eventually pay. Is revenge ever justified? Because the story of Komamura is no. The idea is even vengeance, even if you think it's for a righteous cause, begets only suffering, and then therefore he will be, he's forced to be in the body of an animal, like literally an animal, not a werewolf, not anything like that, not the sexy human werewolf furry mode, nothing like that. He's going to go back to turn into just a regular wolf. Like, that's what his fate is going to be, just like the Falcor dog's fate, okay? So many people have different perspectives on this of just like, hey, the Quincy's attacked and killed everybody. Komamura is 100% in the right to want to kill Yuha, especially considering Yuha's plan. He wants to like break down all of the dimensional boundaries and return everything. He's like, no, it's like, no, we're in the right here. Komamura is in the right here. He should not be punished for this. But that's the nature of the technique. That's the nature of the clan. That's just how it goes. So we see him slowly begin to transform. He reminisces about the time that he spoke to Tozen on his deathbed. That was what Tozen ended up doing. Just he was completely taken over by revenge. He was possessed by revenge, and Komamura ended up going down the exact same path as Tozen. So there's really no high road here. And now he's just a doggo! Oh, Komamura is just a fluffy doggo with a fluffy tail, and that's it. Still has a sword, though, so that's cool. I mean, the sword is still bound to the user, you know what I mean? It's the same soul as Komamura, so it makes sense that the Zanpakuto doesn't disappear. So Tenken is still there next to Komamura. It's just that he can't really hold it anymore. Well, no, you know what? Komamura could still fight in this form. Screw that. There's really nothing else from Komamura in the manga. Maybe we'll see a little bit more. I think there's one scene where we see Iba and Komamura walking around later, but that's it. But no. You could have done something with this. But no, as I said earlier, this was the swan song for Komamura. This was the conclusion of his story arc. This is what you're getting. And I think when Iba becomes captain of Squad 7 and the epilogue, we still see like Komamura, I think, is like still like the companion of Iba and is still there, is like the mascot of Squad 7 or something. But you could have Komamura pick up Tenken in his mouth and slice through a bunch of people, giant, and then he goes Bankai, and the Bankai is just a giant dog version of Tenken. That would actually be cool. Kokujo Tengen Myo. Doggy mode. That would be cool. You could do something with that. But it kind of defeats the purpose of like, no, this is where the path of vengeance led him, okay? He's not even really able to fight anymore. He's just a dog. So Iba shows up, Tetsuzaimon Iba. Hey, Iba, by the way, while you're here, buddy, could you maybe possibly give us the name of your Zanpakuto? Just letting you know, in the release command, while you're at it, if you could. Could Iba just like, it's like, Captain, oh my god, what happened to you? By the way, my Zanpakuto is named. That would be really funny if they work that in. But no, of course, Iba shows up and he just, without missing a beat really, he doesn't even question like, why are you a dog? It's just like, no. Iba understands kind of everything immediately. He picks up his captain and he says, you did nothing wrong, Captain Komamura. Let's go kill that bastard Yuha together. So obviously they don't end up doing that because of a bunch of reasons. But this was a very somber moment. This is probably... Okay, the moment with Iba and Ikkaku at Fake Karakura is probably my favorite Iba moment. I know there's not a lot of Iba moments to begin with. Like, here's my top 10 Tetsuzaimon Iba moments. The moment where him and Ikkaku chatted at the end of the Soul Society. The moment where he beat the shit out of Ikkaku during Fate Karakura. The moment where he drank that sake. The moment where he showed off the badass Yakuza tattoo. No, but this is a really good moment for Iba where he picks up Komamura and he says, you know what, Captain? Screw the whole vengeance leads down a life of despair. Like, no, we're doing the right thing here, okay? Yuha needs to die. Let's go kill the son of a gun, let's do it. And we get the title card, Heart of Wolf. Yes, Heart of Wolf, okay. Iba and Komamura truly did have the heart of wolves. Okay. And then we get the interstitch here. We get the Jinka no Jutsu, or the humanization technique. And we get the Quincy Voltständig. All right, so this is a scene that we expand upon a little bit that we don't see in the manga, where after Kangdu and BG9 use their releases, they immediately are shown being judged in the palace by Hashwolf. So here we actually see the scene where Kangdu and BG9 survive the attack. So here we actually see Uryu is the one that arrives from the shadow portal and is like, you must now come back to be judged. And he does this to Kangdu as well as BG9. Now, BG9 is actually interesting here because BG9 is like, self-repairing protocol initiated, 44%, 45%, and then you have Uryu show up that's like, nah, you failed, buddy. You got to come back. Critical service error 404. You need to come back. And he's like, but I am repairing myself. I will be ready for combat shortly. It's like, no, you failed. You're going to get judged. He's like, damn it. Okay. So then we kind of into see what's up with Bambiette after that fight. She's not dead. She got a lot of her clothing blown off, and unfortunately we see a lot of smoke covering it. But yeah, she got her top pretty much like ripped straight open. So she's there, of course, begrudging about the whole thing. Like, how could I lose to a Soul Reaper, damn it? I can't let this happen. She also mentioned specifically, like, I can't believe I was the first of the 4 to die. Because once again, she's the one that's like, I'm the leader of the Bambies. I'm the leader of the Stern Ritter clique. I can't be the first one to go. I'm supposed to be the last one. But no, then the other Bambies show up and they're just like, they don't care. Look at Latato there. She gives 0 shits about Bambi. She's just like, oh, you lost. Oh, wow. Who could have seen? From their perspective, it was so obvious. It was like, no duh. You were the first one to get defeated. No duh. You were the first one to die. All right. You just rush into attacks and blow everything up. Obviously, you were going to be the first one to go out. We're being smart and staying away. But it's okay, because Giselle has a certain ability, and they don't call her the zombie for nothing. Don't do it. Don't do it, Gigi. God, no. So, I don't know how this process feels, but I imagine it's not very pleasing to turn your friend into a zombie. I mean, for Giselle, it's great, but for Bambi, not so much. All right. So now we cut back to, Shunsui and Nanao there, and their little barrier escapades with Hashwolf. Hashwolf just blows up the barrier. He was just gradually absorbing even though it was a barrier that specifically repels Quincy Ryatsu, it is still in and of itself made out of Ryatsu. So Hashwolf can just gradually absorb it from the other side until eventually it was weak enough that he could destroy it. However, Nanao is kind of prepared for this and activates the second barrier with 800% more hexagons. Hexagons are the bestagons, Hashwolf. Could you possibly defeat this barrier? So Hashwolf kind of looks at it and is like, yes, well, clearly it looks more fragile because it's not a single piece of force field. It's like a bunch of hexagon tablets. But he's like, that means obviously there's probably traps and stuff woven in it. So it really is like a back and forth where it's like, while Hashwolf is busy absorbing the Ryatsu from the barrier, Nanao is on the other side making a new barrier. So it's like a kind of a stalemate there. There's really not much they can do. Honestly, I would wonder why. I mean, Shunsui is the head captain. He can't just go out there and die. But the fact that he's just up there, I guess they are stalling Hashwolf. So nothing else, that's kind of important. If Shunsui were to leave, Hashwolf would just leave. So at the very least, it's like 2 of their greatest fighters are being like kept at bay with this kind of like stalemate they're in right now. Okay, so I guess in that case there is a point to it. Anyway, Hashwolf decides that he has to leave. He's being summoned back. So he decides to, well, he was about to destroy that barrier as well. Like, he's about ready to just go all power with it with the balance. But he's like, oh wait, no, I have to leave. So he heads out. For the execution and the judgment for Kangdu and BG9. Hopefully next episode we will get the K. We will get, like, it'll be like Stern Ritter I, the Iron, Kangdu. Stern Ritter letter K, the knowledge, BG9. You will be judged. Hopefully it's something like that. It would be very, very easy for them to work that in. If they don't, then I guess we'll just never find out about it because that's not going to be revealed then. That's after that, BG9's kind of gone. Unless they come back later. I guess that's possible. They could have been, like, they might have to suffer a punishment and they might come back later as zombies themselves, maybe. Actually, that's not a bad way to do it. You have Kangdu zombie. You can have a BG9. You could have a robot Quincy zombie. Robot Quincy zombie. I want to see that. Robot Quincy zombie. Okay. All right, so speaking of, speaking of robot Quincy zombies, here's Ikaku. Okay, all right. There we go back to Ikaku and Yumachika as well as Shuhei. And they believe that they have finished off Mask because they used that combo attack last time. Ikaku was able to get a hit directly in on Mask's head using Hozoki Maru, like, boom, right in the face. And I bet they also, like, smacked him a little bit there. I think Yumachika's in his Fuji Kujaku form, and of course Shuhei has Kazashini out, so... the fight seems to be over, except he gets back up. A superstar always gets a second round. So, of course, you have James there. James is his little buddy, and as soon as James, like, rings the bell and just like, you go, superstar, then he gets back up and fights again. So that's the basic idea. Remember, James is the one that is the actual Stern Ritter, however, or the one that actually has the power of the superstar. But even if you kill James, it doesn't matter because he'll just replicate. So the power really is a pain. There's really no easy way to get over it other than to just absolutely and utterly overpower Mask. Like, that is the only way. He'll keep getting powerful and powerful and keep coming back, and you just have to keep answering the call every single time in the ring. That's all you got to do. Okay. It's like, I finished off just about every captain we could verify. I don't know if, does Mask not realize that they are not captains? Because the other captains of, like, he's saying I finished off every captain we could verify. Like, Soifun was, yeah, that was BG9, and Rose and Kensei are going to show up here. Shinji was Bambi. Yeah, you haven't really taken out any captains so far, Mask. I don't think you have, so maybe correct your statement, but whatever. He's a wrestler. He's gonna be like, "Oh, James, we've taken out every single captain. Is there anyone else in the Seirete that can take on Master Masculine, Stern Ritter, letter S, Superstar, baby?" You know, he might be doing like that. He might be just like, "Is there anyone else out there, you know, that can answer the call?" You know, something like that. So they witness the lights flashing down from the side. This is like a wrestling match. Oh, who is that? You know? So this is Renji and Rukia arriving down. We don't see him. Actually, we do see him in the manga, like, jumping through the sky and see them, like, falling down. But here we don't see them. So it's actually left a little bit ambiguous on who these exactly are. But no, it's clearly Renji and Rukia. So they're crashing down. And so James and Mask see it, and they're like, "Oh, we should head over there for the next match." Okay, so they're heading over. And at the same time they're heading over, Shuhei and the others get up. And they're like, by the way, I love how their logic is like, you know, you said this was one-on-one, and you're the 3-on-1 death match, one single round, and now you're getting a second round, and just like, I make up my own rules, brother. You know, it's like, that's kind of how it goes. So Shuhei gets up, he wraps the chain around his ankle, and he's just like, you think you beat us just because you counted to 3? Shuhei, buddy, I mean this because I like you. Shuhei, I care about you, buddy. Either go Bankai or stay the fuck down. All right? Go Bankai or stay down. All right? You're not beating this guy by wrapping a chain around his ankle, okay? All that's going to happen is he's going to drag you closer. And yeah, that's going to happen. That's all that's going to happen, Shuhei, all right? That is what you got going for you, all right? Shuhei Hisagi might be the greatest disappointment in the entire Bleach manga. Like, seriously, like, the potential for this guy is absurd. And later on in the Can For Your Own World, they kind of make him like the main character, because it's like, man, Shuhei really got a raw deal here. It's like, yeah, he did. And Kensei even says as much. So Kensei shows up here, and he's just like, dude, you got the shit beat out of you before you could even use the training. I went through this whole training arc. I took time out of my day to train your ass, and you didn't even do anything with it. Oh my god. Kensei's feeling it. He's just like, man, okay, you know what? Stay with your face in the dirt. I'm gonna, like, kick you away, and I'll deal with this guy. All right, God. So we have Kensei Muguruma, Squad 9 captain, also a visored showing up, although they don't really use their visor masks anymore, so just Kensei Muguruma, Squad 9 captain. All right, cool. And he's there. He's like, just, oh, there you go, announcing yourself, of course. Master Masculine is there. He's like, well, you know what, brother? I was gonna fight you, but actually, I'm talking like a pirate now. Yarg, matey, I be a wrestling pirate. Anyway, over yonder, there seems to be a bunch of lights. I'm gonna go explore that for my next battle. So he's less interested in Kensei, even though he's a captain, and more interested in some random lights from the sky. So I guess wouldn't you be? So we have this going on, and then Mask is here. And then, oh, there's Ichigo. But Rose also shows up. Rose is also here at the end. So we now have a 2-on-1 match. Rose, Rojoro Otorobashi, and Kensei Muguruma up against Master Masculine. And this is a great fight. I really enjoyed this fight. Now, there's better fights after this. You know, Rukia's fight is right after this, actually. So I'm really going to enjoy that once we get to Rukia's stuff with Asnote. But I'll tell you what, the Kensei and Rose and then Mask and then eventually Renji fight is top-level shit in this arc. One of my top 5 fights easily. So really pumped for this. Let's get ready for Rages at ringside. But before that, we have some Ichigo stuff here, and I believe this might be the last installment of Ichigo's walk of pain. So he's walking, and he's really sweating now. I mean, there's a lot of gravity pushing down on him here, and he keeps having these weirdo visions of just like, oh, shit, what's going on? Oh, shit, oh, disembodied Soul King, what's happening? Oh my god, who's the guy with the sword? Okay, so Ichigo's really experiencing this kind of tough right now, as Ichibei is speaking over him again. And then he sees an image of the Soul King. And then the big moment from this episode is all of these lights begin to pour into Ichigo, and he's like, ah! And like Ichigo's like screaming in pain, and then it just ends, and then he's just kind of like, huh, okay, that was freaking weird. You know, it's just like, so people seem to be under the impression, and I am as well, I'm going to go along with this, each of these different lights represents an aspect of existence. So you have Shinigami, you have human, you have Fullbringer, you have Hollow, and, you know, so all these different forms are pouring into Ichigo here, okay? You could argue Ichigo's already a human, so he wouldn't have that, but, like, the idea is the blue light is obviously Quincy, green light is Fullbringer. There's some mix-up of just like, well, the red color is this, or the yellow color is this. The point is, and the idea here is that all of the powers, or I guess the burdens of the Soul King, are now being, like, downloaded into Ichigo, which is something, yeah, we did not see this in the manga at all. So this is something that's very fascinating here on exactly what is happening to Ichigo. Like, something, like, the way this is honestly going, like, the way Ichibei described it was like, oh, you know, if the Soul King was left dead, then, like, Ichigo might have to become the next Soul King. Like, they'd have to rip his arms off. In this scene here, it seems like Ichigo kind of already is the Soul King. You saw him with the eyes, and now he's all this power, like, sucked into him or downloaded into him or something. We could also do a thing, maybe, where by the end of the arc, maybe Ichigo, like, gives the energy back. I would actually really love to see that, like, the conclusion, like, after the battle is over, because we just cut to the future after the battle's over in the manga. But we could have a whole scene in the anime where the battle's over, Yuha's defeated, and they're like, okay, well, Ichigo, you were going to be the next Soul King, but thankfully we have Yuha's body on standby here, so we could just use that to pop that into the crystal to make that the next Soul King. So maybe Ichigo gives back the power at that point, and then he can go live a normal life with Orihime and get married, and then eventually have Kazui. So that might be the direction we're going here. It might be the direction. But for right now, this is very foreboding. Very cool, though. So Ichigo gets all that sucked into him, and he's like, all right, that was weird. And now finally, Ichigo is able to reach the end of the path, which leads to a very... I did not expect the end of the path to lead here. I thought it was going to lead to, like, directly in front of the Soul King. Like, he was going to arrive in the throne room, and then the Soul King was going to, like, telekinetically communicate with Ichigo's soul or something like that. But no, no, no. He shows up in Senjumaru Shutara's palace, which is a place we skipped over earlier. We see it earlier in the manga with Renji actually being there. And then so he shows up at that palace, the last palace we have not seen yet. And Ichigo's just there like, so, what do you want me to do next? And Shutara's just there like... Now, here's the thing. You might say she's into some kinky stuff, ladies and gentlemen. Ichigo is going to have to strip naked here. Like, that is what happens when you go to Senjumaru's palace. Like, it happened with Rukia, happened with Renji, happened with Byakuya. Ichigo's going to have to strip naked here. So, it's for measurements, ladies and gentlemen. It's no sex thing. It's for measurements so Ichigo can get some cool new threads, okay? But, yeah, there is a little bit of an overtone there. It's Ichigo's like, so what do you want me to do next? And Senjumaru's like, ara. You know, just like, well, all right, so there it is. And then, of course, we have the next episode, Rages at Ringside. Get ready, everybody. This is going to be an action-packed episode. This is going to be pretty intense. So, Renji fans rejoice at this one. But anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you enjoyed this episode of BAN-KAST. As always, it's available on YouTube in the video format and also podcast format over on Spotify, also on Google Play as well. So check that out. Google Play, Google Music, the whatever podcast Google does. I'm on that too. I'm on that as well. Yeah. Thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Teching and Barry signing out. See you next time.